for all the folks that are on and that can present. I want to just make sure everyone knows that this meeting is being recorded. So today, August 24th, this is our second in our series of coaches meeting that we have every year at the start of the season. There's been a few changes in the deck from the first one to the second one, so this will be the one that we actually post online when it's available. Your presenters today, I'm Bob Driscoll, VP of Competition. I'll be talking about how D2 works and a little bit about the organization of the site and about the competition and scheduling. Alan Johnson will be presenting on discipline. He's our president. And Fred Buthel will be presenting on behalf of Sean Large on the Recreational Cup. So our agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about D2, how it works. We're going to give you a sample of how to use the D2 site, especially for new coaches. We're going to talk about scheduling and score reporting. That's one of the things that we're going to want to emphasize is getting the scores reported for all the teams. We'll go a little bit into the changes for this year. We'll talk about the operating procedures. And then for the coaches, we'll talk about best practices and what to do on the game day. Like I said, Alan Johnson will talk about the disciplinary and how D2 handles disciplinary procedures. Recreational Cup will be covered by Fred. And then we'll talk about team placement and how we've done our divisions this year. So real quick, our D2 Board of Directors. On the line, we have Alan as our VP of VP of Discipline and the President. Alan, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, gee, Bob, you're trying to give me your job there too, huh? Not that you don't have plenty to do.
I'm the VP of Competition. Sean Large is not available today, but he is the Treasurer and Rec Cup. We have an open position for Secretary, so communicate that out to your team that we're always looking for help there. Fred Butel is our EYSA representative. Fred?
Hey, everybody.
Our Lake Washington representative is Megan Dosh. She's not here on the call today. Our NYSA representative is Mike Pamperin. Mike, did I get that? Did I say your last name right?
Yep.
Okay. And our Snoqualmie Valley representative is Chariot. For the coaches, when you see the EYSA, the representatives, those are your representation to D2. They represent your teams and your associations. So if you have concerns about how D2 is functioning or operating, that is your point of contact. And then today, I'm very happy to introduce our new administrator, Bonnie Beck, new for 2022. She's doing a bang-up job, and she's available at admin@wsysad2.org. This is her first year, and like I said, she's doing great work for us.
Hey everyone, I'm also a coach, so some of you guys may see you guys on the pitch, but again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out and I will get back to you as quickly as I can.
So about D2. D2 is solely a recreational soccer league. This year we have about 109 teams, and we're focused on U13 through U19 teams. We have the membership of the 4 soccer associations, soccer clubs in the Eastside. So we have Eastside Youth Soccer Association and their representative clubs, Lake Washington Youth Soccer Association and their representative clubs, North Shore Youth Soccer Association, which is represented by United, and Snoqualmie Valley Youth Soccer Association. The reason why we're in existence is because once we get above U13, there's not enough teams at each association to satisfy the competition. By the time we get to U19, we might only have 1 or 2 teams from each association. So we combine together, we represent the Greater East Side, and this allows us to have teams at the right age group where we're able to have competitive play. Just administration for the this webinar. We'll going to ask that you hold off all questions until the end of the section. And so we'll go through my portion, and then at the end, just hold your questions to that. We have been recording attendance. And I think let's go ahead and skip this. I think we're actually capturing your email as you're signing on. So as long as we have your email and your email is right in our records, we'll be able to identify your teams and the coach name. So how does D2 work? So this is kind of the ladder. You guys are teams, and you're formed by your associations, your clubs, and then we are the league that sits and kind of arbitrates between the clubs about what teams play what teams. All the associations then merge into the state. So Washington State Youth Soccer, which is a part of US Youth Soccer, which is part of US Soccer, which is finally part of FIFA. As a D2 league, our responsibility includes forming divisions. Then we schedule opponents and dates. So what we'll do is we'll put together a list of who plays who and on what day. The field and the time is actually done by the associations. We'll talk about that on the next slide. We also manage the rules of competition for inter-association play. So while you're playing in D2, the rules of competition that you're under fall under our guidelines. Also disciplinary. If there's anything disciplinary related, it falls under our disciplinary guidelines and our disciplinary committee to handle that. Alan's going to go into detail about that. We also manage the League Recreational Cup. So Recreational Cup is an extra set of games that you register your teams for, with the thought of being able to get through the league. The winners of our league plays across the state, and then eventually state semifinal, quarterfinals if we have enough teams, state semifinals, and then finally state finals, which takes place down in Tukwila at Starfire. So it's separate from the fall soccer league, so you have to sign up separately for it. And Fred's going to cover that in more detail later on in the presentation. So how does D2 work? We also turn over certain responsibilities to the clubs. Number one responsibility of the club is they maintain the rosters. So they put the teams together, and D2 has no information about who's on what teams. As a matter of fact, our site, the only team information that we actually store is the coach's name, if you assign a manager, and then just the metadata information about the team, the WSSA number, the name, the gender, the age. That's about it. We have no transparency into your rosters. The association also schedules location and time. So D2, part of what Bonnie and I and the competition committee will do is we'll put together the schedule, and then we'll send that out to the associations. The schedule that we send out only has what teams play what teams and on what day. The associations then have to find the field and the time, and then the referees' assignments as well. That's all handled by the association. As a matter of fact, D2 doesn't have any information about fields. We don't manage fields at all. We always get questions about where can we practice and on what fields and all that. That goes back to your associations. The associations also provide the self sign up for the referees, whether they go through their own referee assignment page or if they use EKSRCA. They collect the fees, so whether it's the fees for fall soccer or for recreational cup, that's all done by the association. That's in the lobby. Also practice fields. So if you need a practice fields, that's going to be managed by your association as well. Those questions will go to your association contacts. The other thing that the associations are responsible is for ensuring coach and player compliance and training. That's your safe sport, your sudden cardiac arrest, RMA, and concussion training. Those are required. And Fred brought to our attention at the last meeting that safe sport is required now for youth soccer players 18 and above. Fred, you want to talk about that just a bit?
Sure. So the short thing is, I mean, if you're all coaches, you've been through safe sport, you understand what the program is. Essentially, the organization is looking to expand the number of mandatory reporters, and they're looking to do that by tapping into the player pool as well. I can tell you that this is something that the U.S. Soccer Association and Youth Soccer have tried to tried to delay, and essentially the folks at Safe Sport have pushed it through. So it's much more of a compliance thing. It's a real pain. The good news is that your players can do it in advance, so long as of their birthday, so long as their parents provide approval for it. At one point, there was not really an avenue to do that. And they've at least worked that out, because it used to be that it's like they needed to have safe sport as soon as they turned 18, but they couldn't do it early. No, they can now do it in advance. They still have to jump through some hoops. It's not likely to be a major issue, but especially any of you who have interest in entering Rec Cup, it will certainly be scrutinized more heavily there. In general, though, please plan to work with your clubs to help encourage your players who are 18 or who are turning 18 to complete the safe sport training.
Thanks, Fred.
I think that's about it.
On the site, I just noticed the logo is a little old. We're still using our old District 2. Actually, districts have been dissolved now. We are actually a D2 league. So if you see that WSIS A District 2, we actually mean D2 Youth Soccer League. Okay, one of the things that we'll ask is that for every game, the coaches bring out a completed roster sheet. And what I have on the screen right now is a sample of one of these sheets here. So these are available on our site, and as we go through the site usage guidelines, and I'll give you a demonstration, I'll show you where these are at. In these roster sheets, we're going to ask that you print these out in triplicate, and then fill these out according to your game number. Every game will have a number, the date, the field, whether you're home or the visitor, who your head coach is, who your assistant coach is, your division. If you're playing in a cup game, that's when Rec Cup, that's when you'll fill out this part. You fill out your team's gender, your team name, your team ID, and your opponent's name. The score, half, and the final will be what the referee fills out. And then this is going to be your player information. Now, you'll go through this, put down your jersey number and your player names. The comments and misconducts are to be filled out by the referees. Just a note, you can actually go through and fill these out in advance and then print those out. You don't have to fill them out by pen. You can go ahead and put this. This is an editable form, so you can edit it and then print it out. One other note: this allows for 18 entries for players, and that's the maximum number of players that you can have rostered at a game. So in some cases, after U15, the associations are allowed to put up to 22 players on your team. You're only allowed to have 18 players suited up for your game. So if you have more than that, you're going to have to ask a player to sit out. And what we do ask is that if you do ask a player, if you run into that situation, that you rotate through your players and have the players sit out based on a rotational basis, so everyone gets a chance to play. Yeah, so I'll show you where these are located when we get to the D2 site usage, which is where we're at. So the D2 site. The site is go ahead. The site is this wcisad2.org, which is Washington State Youth Soccer Association D2.org. And this is where all of our information is kept. A couple of things about this. This is where all the parents and players will go to see their schedules. In the past, if you're coming in from a U12 team and you're familiar with going to your NYSA or EYSA sites for your schedules, you got to break the habit of doing that, because from now on, the complete schedules will be located here. If you go to your association, you're only going to see your home games. The associations only know about the games that we give them, and they're only given their home games. Inside of leagues is where the schedules are at. Another thing to note about schedules is that since we don't have roster information, you don't need to have the sign-on to view the schedules. I'm not signed in right now, and when I click on the schedule information, I'll be able to see all the schedules. Now, another note, these schedules are...
You're still showing the roster sheet. If you're trying to show the website, you're not showing it.
What? Right.
I only see the roster sheet on my screen right now.
You may have been sharing the app. There we go.
Yeah, it might have been because well, thanks for that. All right, let me go back here. So can everyone see the site now?
I see a black void. I don't know what other people see.
No,
I don't see it.
Not seeing it. Not seeing it yet.
Yeah.
There we
you
go.
Okay. Huh. All right. So let me back up here. So this is the D2 site. And the site name is wsysad2.org. Make sure you write that down. It stands for Washington State Youth Soccer Association D2.org. As you can see, I'm not signed in right now. I got the log on. I got the log on prompt here. So if I want to log in, that's what I'll click on. But I don't want to log in right now. What I want to show you is that the schedules, by clicking on leagues, that opens up the schedules, and this will show you the scheduling information. You don't need a sign-on information. You don't need to be signed in to see the schedule. This is available for anyone. This is because we don't hold any roster information on the players. We don't have any privacy issues with showing this. So make sure all your players and parents know to come here to look at the schedules. They don't need to be signed in. Now, this schedule information is from last year. We kept it on the site so we could do this demo. We're going to purge this after this meeting, and then we'll be getting schedule information from the associations within the next couple of weeks. Looking at the schedules, I can filter by team name. It takes a partial, so if you put it in partial characters, you can do quick show, and then that will show me any team that has goal in the name someplace. And I could put in a partial name and get all that partial as well. I can also filter by gender, by level. Like I said, it takes a partial, so I don't have to put in the whole thing. It'll show me all the girls U13 games. So that's the important part of scheduling, is that you don't need to be signed in. The other thing is, make sure that you tell your parents not to take this and print it out for the entire season. We anticipate lots of changes throughout the course of the year on our scheduling information, just because we play on grass fields. Grass fields oftentimes get damaged and we have to move things around. The best practice, we'll talk about at game day, is to visit this site often. As a matter of fact, probably even the night before your game, and then have that make sure that your schedule matches what you're anticipating, and also check with your following coach. We'll cover that a little bit more. Outside of schedules, under leagues, we also have standings, and once again, these standings are from last year. If you see Cup, that is dealing with Recreational Cup. Now, there's Cup A and Cup, and it depends on the number of teams. If we have a lot of teams in a division for Recreational Cup, we'll form Cup A, Cup B, and then the winners of that will advance to Cup. In this case, this would be our state final and semifinals. For fall season, for regular fall season, the R1, R2 is what you'll be looking at. So in this case, I have girls U13 R1. This would be if I click on the 4 here, it's going to show me all the games. This is why it's important to have the coaches report the score. This is how we line this up and know the standings. The coaches report the scores, and you'll get an opportunity to report the scores for both the home and the away team. Both coaches do that reporting. That way we validate that the scores are correct. So whether you're the home coach or the away coach, you report your both scores, home and away. Additionally, there's a summary display that would show you the standings. You can see there were a lot of teams in U13. We'll cover that later. Yep, standings. You can look at teams. This is the team information for this year. And so by looking at here, you can filter by gender and division. One thing that they've allowed us to do this year is add more to the filter. So by selecting this, I can see all the boys and girls U13 teams. That's been a change this year. But these are the teams. One of the changes for this year also is that we are putting club, age group, gender and age. This is the birth year, and then the team name. We're being a little bit more consistent about that. To reset your password, everybody will have a site name. Coaches.
Bob,
yeah.
it looks like your screen is not updating.
Damn it.
Because I'm assuming you've been moving around. We're still seeing standings.
Okay, let's see. I'm sharing my screen. I don't know why it's doing this. I'm not sharing a program.
Okay.
Are you seeing it now?
Not yet. It's
The old black?
All
Black
all
black.
black. There it comes. Oh no, came back to you. You may need to turn video off.
Do that. Nobody wants to see me anyway. Is that better?
Nothing there. It's just the black void.
It's unfortunate.
Screens. What about now?
You got it. This is good.
Okay. All right. So switching to a different monitor. Okay, so this is the team information for this year. What I need to do though is about this. I have to pull down my reference here. All right. So yeah, this is where the team information is stored. Every team has a SIS number. This is a unique number. This portion represents your association and your club. This portion represents specifically your teams.
Bob,
working?
sorry, we're seeing the WSAD documents or documents here, the quick reference. Sorry.
No, it's technology is failing me right now. So now you should be seeing this right here, okay? You should be seeing the team name information. Is that what you're seeing?
No, we're still seeing your amazing profile picture. We're using a black screen with you on it. Bob, do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, hold on. Let me try one more time here.
Okay.
Let me do one more thing here. Okay, what do we see here?
I don't see anything.
Yeah, I've got black. You can tell it's trying to share something because it's got all the people around the edges, but black in the shared portion.
Okay. I'm gonna leave and come back in. See. Are you seeing the team information now?
Yes.
Yes.
See the team. We see the teams.
Okay. I'll move slowly. Let me know if this follows with us, okay? All right. For the next section of things that we have to do, we have to sign in. To sign in, you have to go to the login screen. Your site name is your first and last name, and then your password. Let's see.
All right, Bob, yours isn't updating. Would you like one of us to share and we can follow follow where you tell us?
Yeah, let's try that.
Bonnie, you comfortable driving? Or would you like me to go for it? Here. See if I can get mine in there. Now we're going to see how badly I drive. Is mine coming through? I can't see.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Sorry, Fred. I was talking, but I didn't realize I'd muted myself again. So thank you for driving.
Sure. Okay. So you said we wanted to talk about login.
Yeah. So here we go. You got your site name and then a password.
Mm-hmm.
So you go ahead and hit login. Okay. Because you're doing it, not me, I have to do one thing for you, Fred. I have to set you as a coach.
Oh, that's right. I'm not a coach anymore.
Yep. And that's going to require you to update and sign back in, unfortunately.
All right. Oh, we have fun with this.
Okay.
You-
So
I
on
don't-
the left side of Fred's screen, there's a coach dialogue. As coaches, you will all have that. That's an additional administrative privilege. And then there's two options there. One is scores and teams. We're going to ask you to use both of those. For scores, if you click on the link, okay, because we don't have a team set for Fred. What you'll have during the season is your set of matches, the date, the time, your level, home division, and like I said, you'll have a home score and an away score. And then if you want to do a referee evaluation, there'll be an option there. There'll be an open dialogue field. NYSA, we've been having some issues with your site. We've worked with the NYSA technical team. I think we might have it resolved. If not, let us know, and then we'll have you send your referee evaluation directly to our NYSA representative. But what you'll do is you'll report for both coaches will report the home and the away score for their teams. Each of these will have a line for your team. You report the home and the away. That way, if there's a discrepancy, we'll be able to resolve it. Then under teams, we ask that the coaches contact each other so that they can work through the game day situation. So there's two things that we'll have. We're going to ask all the coaches to update their profile with their phone number. We'll walk you through that next. And then the email of the other coach. So in the place where you see the coach, where the coach is underlined, that's a hyperlink that will go to that coach's profile. So if you click on Elise and click on it,
I did.
You'll get the
Yep.
email address. So that way you can email the coach directly. We ask that you email the coach a couple of days in advance and you use the phone for emergency situations. Let's say that suddenly your team shows up and half of them are sick and they're not going to be able to play. Don't rely on email, just reach out and call. And so that's
for
where
for that reason, we really ask you to include your phone number here. This is not something that's generally available. It's something that's only available to other coaches.
Yes, it's only available to people that sign in. So down below where it says services, under profile, this will link to your specific profile. So in this case, we're looking at Fred's information. What we want to do is there's two places that we want to make sure is correct. The tab messaging will have our email addresses in it. And so please validate that we have your email address correct and that the preferred one is got the bullet next to it. And then your phone number. We ask that for your cellular, that you put your cellular phone in this. And so we're going to ask that every coach update this so that way on game day, if the situation arises, we can reach you. Also, there may be a time when Bonnie or myself might need to call you directly. And so it's important that we have this information updated. We have a coach's agreement. Basically, you can read through that, and it's just basically saying that you'll conduct yourself in a proper manner. And then you can also change your password. You can put a photo of yourself on here so the other coaches can recognize you. Let's see. Then to access the roster sheets and other information about D2, under the information left menu item, there's the documents tab. And then I think, yeah, the roster sheet is up there, number 1. So it's in a Word format, so you can print that, you can take that down, download it to your machine, and then you can edit it. Yep.
So you
and
can
you
fill,
can go,
fill in all the base information about your team in terms of, you know, your coaches, your team name, your team ID, all of your players and their numbers, that sort of thing, and then essentially just, you know, fill in the information for your opponent and the game number week by week, or the, you know, in the field that you're playing at, to field and date.
Yeah, so that's the roster sheet information. A couple other things in here that you might want to take a look at is just the bylaws or the revisions. When it comes to Recreational Cup, there'll be a lot of information here for you that you'll want to take a look at as well. Under the Board of Directors tabs, that link, yep. If you need to get a hold of anyone at D2, there's also, we include the email address for those people. And then, Fred, go ahead and click on the WSIS 82 District 2 logo up above.
Here?
Yeah.
Top left? Yeah.
Yep. One thing to also pay attention to on the main site is under the What's New. This is where pertinent information will come up. If we have something like a field closures of that, we'll try and get that updated for you to review. So that'll be up on the site as well. One other thing, I think it's under leagues. Can you check on leagues? Yeah, locations. So when you're looking at your schedules, you'll see a location, and that's going to link basically to a map information of all the different fields that we have in the area. One of the things that we ask is that when you're contacting your other coaches, if you're a coach from that area and you know about the field, please share that information with the other coach. You know, if it's easier to get to a field by parking in a you know, like a business parking lot, and so they don't have to carry their stuff across the road or something, you know, let them know that in advance. All the locations are included in the schedules, and maybe click on schedules again, Fred.
Yeah.
Clear out today.
So field. Oh, clear
Clear,
up. Yeah.
Clear, yeah, you got to clear out today.
There we go.
Yep. So if you click on the field, it'll give you that address as well. It's a good idea to have that address with you in case there's an emergency and you need to call 911. So that's where you can find it. The date format is as you see. So if you can filter for different dates. So like if you want to look for 9/18/2021, you can put that in, but it will also take a partial. So that's going to show everything after 9/12 or after. That's going to show everything 9/18 or after. Okay, let me just take a look and see if there's anything I missed. Roster sheets. We got the soccer bylaws. Fred clicked on what the associations are, the registration. Okay. So now it's back to the presentation. Fred, do you want to keep presenting, or do you want me to try to present the doc?
I'd say go ahead and try to present. I've got the version that you were working in earlier, so I can pick back up with that if we need to.
Okay, let's test it out here.
But so you're gonna share now.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, so you should be seeing D2 site usage demo.
Yes.
Okay. I think there might have been a conflict between PowerPoint sharing and the live meeting sharing. So real quick, for coaches that are coming into D2, so D2 is U13 and above. This is where we stop playing mod soccer, and now it's going to be full 11-on-11. So here's a little chart that shows what are the differences between a U13 game and a U12 game.
So your slide's not updating.
It doesn't say difference U13 versus U12?
No, we're seeing D2 site, D2 site demo.
Yeah, it's still stuck on the previous slide, Bob. Maybe Fred, maybe you should try.
I'll just come back to driving.
You want me to send you the link?
I've got one. You can tell me if I'm out. You're gonna have to watch your own just to tell me if I'm out of date. Hang on.
It looks right to me.
There we go.
All right. Apologize for the technical difficulties.
Sorry
We didn't
about
have this
everybody.
problem last week. Okay, so the difference between U13 and U12, the ball size is going to be bigger. The field and goal size will now be full size throughout U13. And if you just click the little slide presentation there.
Yeah, it's gonna. I've got multiple monitors. That's gonna mess it up.
Okay. And then halves. So the different age groups play different lengths of halves. So U13 and 14 will be 35, 15 and 16 will be 40, 17 through 19 will be 45. One thing that's important about that is that when there's certain times when we don't have enough teams at a certain age level that we wind up combining age levels to make teams. And so one of the things that we do is we'll commit to having the teams play within the same minutes. So if we're going to combine teams, we're going to combine 15 and 16 because they play 40-minute halves. Whereas if we have to combine U17, 18, and 19, those would be 45-minute halves, or 13 and 14, we never have to combine. We always have enough teams there. You'll have 11 players on each side. So, in the past, it used to be a coach license, e-license for training that's covered 11 versus 11. And then your team size. Once you get to U13, U14, you can have 18 players on your team. As I mentioned, you can have 18 players rostered at a game. This comes into a problem at U15 and above because now the association can place up to 22 players on your team. That's why I have that note. The maximum game day roster is 18 players. So you may have to sit some players out. We always ask that if that happens, that you rotate through your team so you're not sitting the same players out every time. Switch. A couple of notes, U13 and U14. We'll cover this at the team placement a little bit more, but that's bigger divisions. We'll also talk about players being rostered to only one team when we get to disciplinary. Alan will cover that in detail. The team name, we modified the format for the team names to be consistent across all of our associations. So now we're asking the teams to give us their club, the gender and birth year combined, and then the team name. It just makes it a little bit more easier and for us to make those determinations by looking at the team names. And then the roster sheets are now online. We used to have them printed in triplicate, and then we'd have you fill them out, and you'd have to come to your association to get those pre-printed sheets. We stopped doing that a couple of years ago. Next. So operating procedures, we have a change this year. Girls U16 are now playing on Saturday. This is a change for 2022. If you're a U16 girls coach, please make note of that. We sent the message out to the coaches directly. We also emailed the associations, but because we wound up combining U15 and U16 girls, we had to have them play on the same day. So Saturdays will now be girls U13 through U16 and boys U13. Sundays will be girls U17 and basically the high school girls team 17 through 19 and the boys U14 through U19. We start the season on Saturday the 10th and we'll go all the way through the weekend of the 11th, 19th, and 11th, 20th. We basically, the way it works out is we have 11 weeks to get 10 games in. We guarantee 10 games. Well, we try to guarantee 10 games. There's sometimes when weather knocks out fields, the games get canceled, and we just don't have the capacity to reschedule every game when that happens. But our goal is 10 games per team. We do know that there may be midweek games and there will be bye weeks, especially if you're in a division with an odd number of teams. There's just no avoiding that. And then reschedules are difficult. There's certain things that we will allow reschedules for, unique events, like if there's a failure at the field, like the lights don't come on and you're scheduled for a night game. If there's a serious amount of sickness with the team and we get advance notice in time. And then, if you're coaching two teams, please let us know in advance so that way we can try and work with the association so that we can separate the game a little bit so on the same day. So if you're coaching two teams and you know that they play on the same day, let us know so we can notify the associations, because they're doing that now. They're actually starting to form those matches, and so we can ask them to make those allowances. Let's go ahead and go to the next page. So the best practices for game day. Number one, contact the other coach before the game. This is something you would probably do with an email. You want to confirm the game time and place. Sometimes the schedule's changed and maybe the other coach hasn't noticed, so it's good to be able to check that off. Also, validate your jersey colors and know that the home team will have to change it. If you're both are wearing red, the referee can't see that, so they might ask you to have the home team change. It's good to know that in advance, so that way you can bring plenty of pennies. Always bring completed roster sheets. Home team provides the game ball. And once again, we're just going to stress is that there's no player cards for the fall league season, but there will be for Rec Cup. And then I'm going to mention again, check the D2 schedule frequently. The schedule does get updated. As a matter of fact, when we start releasing the games and the schedule starts to update, you may see only a couple of games the first couple of weeks. Don't get panicked. We haven't forgotten about you. It just takes a while for the associations to be able to allocate the fields, especially in later October and into November. They won't have that information, maybe even till the end of September. So week over week, make sure that you're checking those schedules. And I would check them the night before the game. On the game day, if there's a situation that comes up, you don't have enough players, contact the other coach. Our goal is to make sure that the games get played. You can show up to a game and actually have a game that the referee will allow if you only have 7 players. But this is recreational soccer, so if you're in that situation, contact the other coach and then arrange to have the game played and potentially mix players up across both teams and just go out there and have fun, make it a scrimmage or whatever. In certain situations like that, we may not be able to schedule because we just don't have the capacity. And next screen. COVID-19, we're still playing under the Washington State Youth Soccer COVID protocols. There's a link. This presentation will be up on the site, so you'll be able to click on that link directly if you're looking for information about COVID. Individual fields may still have their own COVID requirements. We didn't run into that too much last year, so I'm not anticipating seeing a problem with that this year. But it's good to know and validate that. And if we have any conflicting information, we'll send out notification.
That's something where if you're a home coach and you know that there's ends up being some specific requirements, that's very helpful to share with the visiting team. Next one.
Yep. Inclusivity. So D2, part of U.S. soccer, we follow the state guidelines on inclusiveness. There's a link there that describes that. But basically, players are allowed to play in youth soccer for the gender that they feel comfortable with. And you can read this in detail. We just want to make sure that we call that out, and we don't anticipate any issues. We just want to make sure that everyone's aware of it. Next slide. All right, let's see if there's any questions to be answered. Are there any hands up at this point?
Or questions in the chat? Sorry, I can't see them.
The chat.
Get that up.
I still, okay, not seeing anything. Okay. All right. I think we handled all. Do you still have unlimited players?
I see a hand or two out there.
Yeah, so player substitutions are at the discretion of the referees. So the referees will allow the player substitution. It's unlimited, so you can substitute as often as the referee will allow. We committing to each other as recreational soccer, we are looking for fair playing time across all of your players. You know, as a coach, we're asked that you do your best to make sure that all your players get, fair playing time. I see a hand up.
It looks like Justin Smith has his hand up.
Yeah. Justin, can you put your question in the chat?
Do we have a way to unmute them or anything to allow a question? I don't know if it's.
Yeah, we do have that.
Yeah.
Capability.
Okay. So Justin, do you have a question?
No,
Schedules will be posted gradually over time. They will essentially there's a run that schedules go through. The home and away games all the home games get sent out to the clubs who are sponsoring them. The home clubs are responsible for scheduling the fields and the times, and getting that information back to D2, and then it gets as well as posting it for referees. So usually everybody's going to focus. The first scramble is going to be to get the first couple of weeks set up and going. Bob, when we've normally got that up by Labor Day.
Yeah. So just as a little, we sent out the pairing information to the associations this week. So we're right on schedule. We're anticipating that the associations will start leaking that information back to us probably by mid next week. But definitely before the Monday of the first week of the game, you will have the first week's posted. Now, some associations respond quicker, some respond a little bit slower. We'll start prodding them about next Wednesday. So now is the time, if you're coaching two teams, to let us know so we can make those requests. I'm going to answer another question here from Corey. If your team has 20 players, the other team only has 12, can you carry your roster and offer subs? Yeah, you can do that. You can help out the other team if you know in advance that they're not going to have enough players. Referees, we'll talk about the referees during the disciplinary. So I'll hold off on answering that question. I'll let Alan answer that one.
You want me to answer that now or later? I can answer it now.
I think
I'll just go ahead and answer it now. So D2 does not schedule the referees as Bob already mentioned. They're scheduled by the association and by the clubs. And then there's also, to answer your questions, you are not guaranteed refs for every game. You are ref spots will be available for all of your games, but depending upon supply and demand, how many games there are and how many referees there are, you may or may not have a referee. The COVID has been very hard on the number of referees. And so even though we've got fewer teams here this year in D2, there are a lot less referees than there used to be. So I really don't know what the fall season will be like in terms of referee coverage. We'll just have to wait and see. There's also a question from Justin about excuse me, well, you have 3 referees. Well, you have a center referee, well, you have a referee and 2 assistant referees. Depending upon the age group and depending upon the clubs, they decide how many referees are going to be assigned to a game. If it's a younger teams, they may only, some clubs only have a referee spot open because based on their past experience, their AR spots never get filled, or maybe they don't want to pay for them, or I don't know. But that's not up to D2. So there may be 1 referee, there may be 3 referees, there may be 2 referees, depending upon if there's an open spot or not. So it's we don't really have any way of telling you any guarantees on that right now. But referees will always be, all games will have a referee spot to be assigned. Whether somebody ends up filling those spots, we hope they do, but there's no guarantee that every single game will have a referee. In the event that your game does not have a referee, the game should be played and the 2 coaches agree on who's going to be a referee for the game. Not having a referee is not a reason not to play the game. And so the coaches just need to agree on what to do.
Yeah.
I think that's all I got for now.
Yeah, it's a good idea to canvass your parents ahead of time, because you may need someone who's ready to be Johnny on the spot. You know, even if they're not fully current or something like that with it. You want somebody to be able to step in and do that. And if you have to do your own games, that can be challenging. Having done that as a coach before, when I have to step on and referee a game, neither team likes it.
Okay, I think that's the questions that we have for now. If there's more questions, we can answer it. I'll be back on at the end of the session. Alan, go ahead and kick off the interdisciplinary discussion.
All right, I'm Alan Johnson. I'm the VP of Discipline, also the president. And just to address Keith's question in the chat. So we're talking about the situation when there are no referees at the game. So if both coaches talk about it and they agree that one of the coaches is going to referee the game, then that person will be the referee. If they agree that one coach referees the first half, the other coach referees the second half, that's okay. If one team has a relative that is actually a certified referee, but typically they would not be able to referee their game based on their relationship with the teams. If both coaches agree that referee can referee the game, that's also another avenue. But a referee in that situation can never be assigned in advance. Obviously, that would just be if there's absolutely no referee for the game and both coaches agree. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next slide, Fred.
All right, trying.
Okay. All right, so the disciplinary committee reviews all of the, well, okay, first of all, the D2 does have a disciplinary committee, and they review all aspects of misconduct reports, yellow cards, red cards for players, coaches. They also determine any sanctions for those, for that misconduct. Normally that's only about red cards, but sometimes things that may only get yellow cards may also warrant sanctions. So we just remind the coaches that it's really good if we don't get to meet you, I guess I'd say, which sounds kind of funny, but if you never get to talk to me as a VP of discipline, that's actually a good thing. Other things that the committee does is if the match is abandoned for some reason, the referees at the field do not determine what happens to a match. The coaches of the teams do not determine what happens to the match. That falls to the disciplinary committee to determine that. If there are ineligible player issues, we talk about that. If there's a match protest, we will evaluate and rule on that as well. Next slide, please. There's no weekly, this is actually pretty darn old in terms of this sort of stuff. There's no weekly disciplinary meetings. Hearings are held as required based on circumstances. It's always good if we go through a year and don't have to have a hearing. But hearings are only held, well, typically only held if a player or a coach wishes to contest the card they received. Now, there may be other situations where D2 calls a coach in for a hearing because of things that happened at a match or something like that. But that's just on a case-by-case basis. In the perfect world, we have no hearings. Next slide, please. Roster. Bob's already covered that. There's a Word document on our website. Download it, fill it out, print it out. Bring 3 copies to each game. Different referees are going to tell you different things, but the normal course of action is the reason for 3 copies is the referee keeps 1 copy. Each coach gets a copy, and that roster has the score on it. So everybody has the same score, and you know, everybody's happy that way. If you pre-print your rosters and have all 18 names on there and don't have an updated one, just cross out people that aren't playing. Include the first and last names of both players and coaches. Do not use ineligible players. There is no such thing as a guest player. If you're short of players and you say, "Hey, can I have my kid's neighbor play for the team?" If they are not on your official roster, they are not on your team. So just ineligible players, guest players, guest players are ineligible players. There's no such thing as a player pass or anything like that, like there are in some of the Premier and Select leagues. So,
Alan, can I step into this for a second?
yes.
There's been some potential confusion. You have game rosters and you have a roster that is provided to you by the club. That's the club is who determines who is on your team. If your player is not on your club, the roster your club provides, they are not an eligible player. And there are no exceptions to that.
Right. Yeah.
It is possible to borrow players from your opponent, from your opposing team. They're basically part of the roster for the game. And so if you're short players, you can use players from the other team, and the other team is willing to, you can use players from the other team to fill out your squad or something like that. But other than those players that are on the rosters for both teams, that are assigned to those teams by the clubs for that game, no other players are eligible. Doesn't matter if they're registered with another team in the same age group or anything else like that. That does not count. They have to be assigned to your team or to your opponent's team.
Yeah, good point. And sometimes that's a point of confusion with coaches. Like there's the club roster, which is going to have birthdays and all sorts of good things on there, and has everybody that's rostered to your team. That is not the roster you hand out to the referee for your game day roster, so to speak. So your game day roster limited to 18 players. Those 18 players all have to be on your official roster from the club. And if they aren't on your official roster, they should not be on your game day roster. So when you get a chance, if you have any questions about discipline, there's a document on the website. There are some issues that can come into play where if a team gets lots of yellow cards and red cards, there are points accumulations that can happen where basically you can face disciplinary action for that. This has not happened recently, so that's a good thing. But the coach is responsible for keeping track of how you're doing as a team discipline-wise. And of course, you get points for not only players' disciplinary issues, you also get points for coaches' disciplinary issues. Okay, next slide. And so if you have any questions on points, please just ask me. It can be confusing, but like I said, typically it's not an issue. Players can be rostered to only one USF affiliated team at a time. If you're rostered to, let's say, your D2 team, you cannot be rostered to a select team that's playing at the same time. That doesn't mean that you can't play on your school team or your indoor soccer team or your church team or what have you. but in terms of official competitions, you can only be on one team at a time. And again, no guest players. Next slide, please. These are kind of older, but I won't go into this too much. Yellow cards and red cards for coaches. The very top one, if the referee asks your player to leave the field on the other side of the field because that's the closest side of the field for them to leave on, then they should do so. Late in a game when your team is ahead, that's a traditional time waster to walk all the way across the field to get off there. But please respect the referee when they ask you to leave the field at a place that is not at the closest spot. Coin toss, you get the choice of ball or side. Let's see, drop ball to the goalkeeper or one team only. There's no contested drop balls anymore. If the ball hits the referee and you lose the ball, then the ball goes back to the team that had the ball by drop ball. The second to last one, goal kicks. Some people don't, maybe still aren't familiar with this one. The ball for a goal kick is in play as soon as it is kicked. It does not have to leave the penalty area. So sometimes everybody stands around, waits for it to come out of the penalty area, and then somebody swoops in and intercepts the ball. So just keep in mind that is no longer needs to leave the penalty area. And penalty kick, goalkeeper has to have 1 foot on the line when the ball is kicked. Next slide, please. Be a positive role model for your players, for your parents at the match. I really prefer not to hear about coaches that haven't been a positive role model, shall we say. But misconduct by coaches, we look at it very closely on the disciplinary committee and maybe even as the D2 board as well. If you get sent off, you're going to hear from me if you're a coach. And if you're out there really verbally abusing youth referees, we take a very dim view of that. We have enough of a problem with retaining referees as it is. And frankly, one of the primary reasons they quit is because adults yelling at them, whether they're coaches, whether they're parents. So please be respectful. That doesn't mean that you have to agree with the calls, but please be respectful. And just like I said, be a positive role model. Like I said, if I don't get to talk to you as a VP of discipline, I'm actually very happy about that. Next slide, please. Okay. Coaches confronting referees is a growing problem, and nothing good will happen if you do. And so unacceptable behaviors include insisting on talking to the referee after they say they're done talking to you. If they say they're done talking to you, leave it. It's okay to go and ask a question. That doesn't mean the referee has to answer you. But if they say that they're done talking to you, they don't want to talk to you anymore, then just leave it. Video recording the referee. Why? There's no good purpose of doing that. It's actually can be viewed as a form of harassment. Do not follow a referee to their car. Do not follow the referee's car in your car, and do not threaten the referee. And I will tell you right now that all of these items have happened in D2 games before. So these are not things that I'm randomly making up here. And they can get downright scary. We've even had parents from teams surround the referee's car and things like that. So, it's a soccer game. Maybe the referee did a good job. Maybe they did a crappy job. That doesn't make bad behavior excusable. So please really consider what you're doing in terms of if you get all wound up. But the referee, you don't have to like the referee, and there are avenues for evaluating the referee. when you do evaluations for referees, be factual. Tell them what they did that you disagree with. Don't say they sucked. Don't say they made all calls for the other team. That doesn't tell anybody anything. So use specific examples of why of the issues that you felt that you saw with the referee. So, and if you conversely, most people do evaluations when they want to complain. If you see a referee do a good job out there, evaluate them as well. But it's just like reviews of products online. People like to complain rather than praise. So if you do get the opportunity to praise, please do so. Next slide, please.
Alan, before you go on, I wanted to actually drop in 2 things here if I can.
Go right ahead, Fred.
One of them, coaches. If you haven't heard this before, this is important. You are responsible for your sidelines. If you have a parent who is abusing the referee verbally, whether it's the center referee or their ARs, if there are assistant referees, or any of the players on the field, most referees are going to ask you to deal with that. If you don't deal with that, your game may be abandoned, or you may be sanctioned. So it's an unpleasant truth, but if you've got a troublesome parent, that's something to plan for. Various advice goes depending on personality. Some people just need a reminder, and I've had a very wise coach decades ago who basically said, yeah, lollipop is your best friend. If they start talking too much, hand them a sucker and tell them not, that you don't want to hear from them until they're done with it. The other thing is, yes, even for things before and after the game, you end up being responsible. If you end up, a number of these things that Alan's pointed out are things that weren't done by coaches, but were done by parents who didn't seem to understand that they were jeopardizing their team. And it will jeopardize your team if something like this happens at one of your games. So please bear that in mind. And again, while these have happened, thankfully they don't happen. It's not like they've happened a lot. It's scary when they come up, and we react to them pretty strongly just because of that.
Hey, Alan, I'd like to have you also address a question that came up in the chat as long as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
If you experience getting harassed, what if it's the harassment's coming from the other coach? What if you're a coach and you hear the other coach on the other side harassing the referee?
Well, I mean, you can send an email directly to me, and usually we may contact the referee and ask them, see what the referee reports, because one thing to keep in mind with referees being harassed, it depends upon experience, it depends upon age of the referees. Just because a referee is older doesn't mean they're experienced. Just because a referee is young doesn't mean they're inexperienced. But different people have different comfort levels in dealing with badly behaved people, shall we say. Some people just try to ignore it and hope that they'll leave it alone. Some people can be very direct. So if you see, as a coach, another coach doing harassing the referee in what you feel is an unacceptable manner, there's if you choose, and I'm not suggesting you say anything to the other coach because that can be volatile all by itself. And if you can always send me an email and tell me about who the coach was and what game it happened in, because we can look into it. We can talk to the referee and ask them what they heard. But referees don't always. Some referees take a lot of abuse and never tell anybody about it, which is unfortunately not what we want them to do. But the referees do not work for us or anything like that. And like I said, every referee maybe doesn't, may or may not have the same comfort level in reporting people. So, let's see.
Also, under unacceptable behavior, making the video sign. Did we cover that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
the video replay sign.
Sorry, can you repeat that again, Bob?
The video replay sign, right?
Oh, the
when-
video replay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the VAR side, like video review. Nothing good comes from doing that because obviously we don't have VAR. You may only have one referee, and one referee keeping track of 22 players on the field plus at least 2 coaches on the touchline. That's a lot to keep track of. Somebody, Eric here says this is a lot harder to do when the family's on the opposite side of this, the players and coaches. Well, as a coach, it's going to be your responsibility to deal with that badly behaved parent on the other side of the field, and whether that's you send your assistant coach over there to do it, or what, call up somebody on their side. But I mean, I'll be honest. A lot of times, everybody knows who the badly behaved parent is on a team, or at least if you don't know it on the first game, you find out pretty darn quickly who that is. So it's usually not a big surprise. If they're on the other side of the field from you, you just have to figure out a strategy. But this is why it's always good to have 2 coaches, because then you can send somebody over to deal with that. Hopefully you don't have to. Some referees will deal with it directly. The referees are not required and really are not supposed to deal with it directly, because the parents, the sidelines, the spectators are not within our control. The people that are within our control are the players and the touchline people, the coaches and the assistant coaches. So let's see. Eric Viafor mentions you contacted the email. I'm not sure. So just because you contact us, you may or may not hear from us. Unfortunately, depending upon time, we don't necessarily report back on, well, unless you're actually involved in it, you may not hear back about what happened or didn't happen. So there's a limit to how much back and forth we can do. But I'm not sure of the incident in particular that he's asking about. Any other questions?
I think we cleared them all.
Okay, I think, is this the last slide here, Fred?
I think you have one more.
Players
Okay.
here.
Yeah, so if you get a red card, you're automatically suspended for the next match unless you hear otherwise. Now, if you're going to be suspended for more than one match, you will definitely hear about that. But you're automatically suspended for the next match. So even if you get no paperwork because let's say the VP of discipline is on vacation and doesn't get it to you, that would be me, you're still suspended. You're not required to ask for a hearing unless you feel that the referee has misapplied the laws of the game. So misapplied the laws of the games means that, let's say, they sent you off because you I can't think of a good example. Let's say you sent the player off because you thought you had given them 2 yellow cards and you only gave them 1 yellow card, and you sent them off, and then you insisted that the referee insisted that they'd given you 2 yellow cards, but they confused your number with another player's number or something like that. That would be a misapplication of the laws of the game. Now, hopefully the referee would be able to figure it out that you're the wrong player, but situation like that would be a clear misapplication of laws of the game, and you would definitely want to protest that. But disagreeing with the call isn't grounds for getting your suspension overturned. But if you have a multi-game suspension and you want to plead for reduced sanction, that's always a possibility too. And then you're required to have proof that the suspension has been served before returning to play. And you'll get a form from me that the referee is supposed to sign. If you don't have the form, you can have the player, the referee sign the roster saying that player, XY set out the game and did not play. That's another way of documenting that they didn't play. All right, is there another slide? Okay.
That's it.
And if anybody has any specific questions that they haven't, there's nothing in the chat at the moment. Looks like. Okay, I'm done for now. Back
right.
to you. I guess it's over to you now, Fred.
I guess so. All right. So
Yeah,
I'm
you can't
Sean.
see
I'm
it, but
Sean Larch today.
No, it's up at the top of the slide. It's cut off.
I'm cutting myself off here. All right.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, didn't realize how much of the top of the slide I was taking off. All right. So quickly, Rec Cup. Quick overview of what Rec Cup is. It's a statewide tournament for recreational teams. Play starts in District 2. And so essentially, depending on how many teams there are in District 2, you heard Bob talk earlier about the fact that there were sort of Cup A and Cup B and type things showing up on the District 2 website. So the Recreational Cup is played in parallel with the second half of the D2 season. Games will be done. If your normal games are on Saturday, then Rec Cup games would be on Sundays. It's a statewide tournament, but the first round is essentially within D2. So you get to a winner for D2. The winner for D2 then advances to state knockout rounds, and usually that can be anywhere from 1 to 3 games to get through to the finals, depending on how things go. It's a single elimination at the state level. You get through or you don't. Once you lose in the state levels, it's you're in or you're out. You get a minimum of two group play matches within District 2. There's a random draw for each age bracket. We ignore divisions. So, I mean, this season, we don't actually have a lot of divisions, multiple divisions for different age groups. But, in years where we've got a Division 1, 2, or even Division 3, there is no seeding or anything else that takes place. It's a random draw that determines what groups are put together and the order of play. The age cup brackets align with the state brackets, and it's important that you understand if you've got a mixed age group on your team, your oldest player determines what age bracket you're in. So the oldest player on your roster who is going to play in Rec Cup. So if you're, for example, a U15 team who has picked up a couple of U16 players because you're playing in a mixed division in the fall, if you want to play in U15 for State Cup, that would mean that you might enter State Cup and you might essentially drop your 2 U16 players. That can be challenging. That's something you make as that's a team decision you need to make in consultation with the other players on the team. But otherwise, you would need to be playing you'd need to enter at the age of your oldest team. Generally, it's the same roster as league play. You can't add players. Like I said, you can remove players, especially when you're in high school ages and you've got 22 players on the roster. If you've got some players who don't want to play in the State Cup roster, they don't need to be there if they opt out or something like that. There's an entry fee that covers the state fee plus District 2 plus association costs. It will vary from association to association. Bob, did we actually go back and figure out what the D2 fee was? I apologize. I meant to follow up on that and I didn't.
Yeah, the D2 fee was $275.
And that includes the state fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
then the
D2
associations themselves will have their own fee. So there's 3
Yes.
fees that go into the cost of entering a team, right? It's a team into the Rec Cup.
Yeah. The state is still getting organized around this. It takes a while for them to get things geared up, and the state just went through a significant turnover of personnel this year. So the folks who've run the Rec Cup the last couple of years aren't there anymore. But Sean is part of the Rec Cup committee, and they've started talking, but they haven't actually gotten down to substance on it yet. This is important, however, that you understand it will move ahead very quickly. especially because you end up needing to make a decision before the end of September if you want to enter your team. And it's always a bit of a scramble getting this together for Rec Cup, but it is a ton of fun. A lot of teams who've done this have said, you know, this is great. We'll do it every year that we can. It is definitely an exercise, though. When you do a, you know, there are a handful of things you do. There's a separate meeting for coaches who are going to Rec Cup because there's a lot of things that you've got to deal with that you haven't dealt with before. You have to have player cards. You have to have state rosters. You've got a number of other, you know, you're gonna have 2 games a weekend for a number of weekends at least to as long as you advance. It is and so it's important that you've gotten a commitment for the entire schedule before you enter. I've got to tell you, the District 2 Finals is a real production. We get East Lake Stadium most years. We put on a real show. We've got walkouts. You've got, you know, you certainly have 3 officials for your game. You've got announcers. You'll have parents calling out your player intros if you want, and we got a number of people who give us some proper DJ voices. So it's a real show. It's a great experience. And there's also then a pretty good show that gets put on for the semifinal and final games down at Starfire as well, if your team advances that far. Let me go quickly. The timeline. Registration will open mid-September. It will close by the 28th. The coaches meeting will be following, you know, essentially shortly after that in October, and play begins mid-October. So you've got basically a month from the time that registration opens till play begins. It moves fast. You're going to play concurrent weekends on the opposite day. The finals for D2 is typically the weekend before Thanksgiving. I can't say for sure that that's what this weekend is right now. There's a break for Thanksgiving, and then you go into whatever's happening for state quarterfinals, semis, and finals. The semis and finals are on the same weekend. In some cases, they're on the same day. It depends on the age group. That's it for Rec Cup. Any questions in the text here?
Oh, one thing about on the registration opening up on 9/14. So the registration is actually done at your association. So the association is where you sign up, and the association is where you'll pay. So that's where the team information about how much your cost will be finalized. We don't control how much the association actually charge. I think it's typically like $400 for a team to enter the Recreational Cup. We guarantee 2 games. If we can't guarantee 2 games, there was a couple of last year because we had a low number of teams. What wound up happening is we had a couple of teams in divisions where we only had 1 team, and so we extracted the D2 portion of the fee because we didn't host any games and sent them right to state. So, yep, do Rec Cup. I agree with Coach Corey.
Yep, and Corey, if it wasn't clear, yes, you can enter with 19 as long as you're. Oh, actually, it didn't occur to me to ask. I'm assuming you're 15 or older. If you're 15 or older, you can carry your full roster of 20. You can carry your full roster, your sort of team roster of your team roster of 22. But for any given game, you can only put 18 on the roster. All right. I think that's it for the Rec Cup.
Okay. Next slide. Okay, so other stuff. If you have a manager or an assistant coach that you would like to have enter scores, if you're gonna share that love, just go ahead and email us to admin@wsys82.org. That's admin@wsys82.org, and let us know. All we need to know is the name. We'll add that person in. We need to know the name and an email address as well. Change team name. Oh, yeah, we're too late for that. All the team name changes are done because this meeting is a little later in the season than we would normally have. But we've already sent out the information to the association, so the team names are locked as of earlier this week. Next slide.
And hey, Bob, can I add one more comment on the last slide? Is that we strongly encourage you to have at least 2 adults with all the credentials, the clearances, the RMA and so forth, safe sport, because, well, due to life, if you're the only coach that has the credentials and you can't be there for the game, you just can't ask a random parent that doesn't have the clearances to be the coach. They need to have the proper, those clearances. So, and also, I guess if you're a coach and you get a red card and you're the only coach there on the bench, then the game will be over if that happens. So there's a couple of reasons to have at least 2 parents with the credentials.
Yeah, and another note on that, if you are entered in Rec Cup, every person and player on your sideline will need a player card. To have a player card, you have to have your RMA and safe sport if you're an adult.
And I think it's a maximum of 4 for coaches, I think.
Yeah, 4 coaches, and Sean will be working with the state on that in case any of those things change. That'll be introduced at the Rec Cup, but if you're planning on being in the Rec Cup and you have a coach that hasn't gone through all the safe sport and RMA stuff, start working on that now, because you're not going to get it done in a couple of days. By the time you get through it all, it's a little bit of a commitment. Next slide. Okay, actually, there's a change that's not reflected on this side. GU13, we're going to have 2 divisions, one of 8 teams and one of 9 teams. I apologize for that. I should have updated this. But I will make a comment that is, there's no competitive information put in there at all. These were random draws. So if you're in the 18 division and the 19 division, the teams that you're playing against were selected at random through a roll of a dice. So, and the reason we do this is because we don't want to put a 16 division of U13. There's just too many changes from U12 to U13, and we never got it right in the past. So with 8 and 9 division teams, you'll only be playing the same team, 5 teams twice, or with the 19 division, it's 4 teams you'll play twice. So you're not going to be seeing 6 teams twice in the same year. With the girls U14, we have 1 division with 12 teams. That just worked out a little bit better than trying to do 2 divisions of 6 teams. So as we look at the standings, there will be 1 team that isn't played. I'm going to talk about the girls U15 and 16 with the 14 teams. All the 14 teams, I want to address that separately. But this year we had to combine the 15 and 16s to be able to put together competitive pairings. The high school girls teams, we only had 7 teams all together. They're all 45-minute halves, so they became 1 division. I'll be sending out some special notes to the girls, all the girls coaches, about competitive play, competitive balance there, and making sure that we play, safe soccer for that. There is a little bit of an age gap here. High school girls play this in mixed teams. We would like to have stayed to 2 division. We just didn't have the number of teams. So if you're in that age group, I know there might be concerns, but we're going to try and address it through, basically coach education. U13, we went with boys U13. We went with 1 big division. We'll be able to do competitive alignment next year. So you won't see, if you're in that age division, you won't see every team in your division. You won't play them all. So there could be a possibility that there's a couple of teams that go 10-0. But this is rec soccer, and we're really not in it for the standings, are we? Boys U14, one division, 14 teams. I'll explain that a little bit more. We also had to do the same thing with BU 15 and 16, put them in 14 team divisions. BU 17, we have a 9-team division. It's guaranteed to have buys. And boys U18, 19, there are 7 teams. The 17 divisions, when we have a 7-team division, it's a difficult thing because within a 11-week season, what we're going to wind up with is 4 teams that have 2 buys, and we can't get them all in on their regular weekdays. So that means that for 17 divisions, we have extra games that we'll have to work with the associations on getting them scheduled. Now, the associations we can work with to choose either to do double headers, or do a game on Saturday and Sunday, or do a weekday game to have that last game made up for those 4 teams. So we try to avoid 17 divisions. Unfortunately, this year we just couldn't do that with our high school girls and our 18 and 19 boys. For the 14 team divisions, I want to kind of explain this now, and I probably should have put a chart together. What we've done is we've taken and we've put for the girls U15 and 16, the boys U14, and the boys U15 and 16, we've created a division of 14 teams. There's 2 groups, and the groups are based on competitive records from their last year. So what we've done is we've tried to match up the 7 teams with a winning record, and then 7 teams with not having a winning record. To eliminate the buys, what we've done is that the week that the team would have a bye, they're going to play interdivisional games, intergroup games. So Group 1 will mostly see Group 1 players. Group 2 will mostly see Group 2 teams. But when there's a bye, the 2 bye teams in that division will play each other. And what we've done with the buys is that based on their records from last year, we ranked them from 1 to 7. The team with the best record in Group 1 will play the team with the best record in Group 2, and we'll carry that through. So as the stack ranks, it'll go second best, third best, fourth best as we hit through the bye weeks. So the nice thing is that we can get through the season in 10 games. The standings will be a little different because you'll play 9 teams in your division and sometimes 8 teams, depending if you get the 2 buys, and then you'll play 2 teams in the other group. This is something that we're trying for this year, and we'll solicit coach feedback at the end of the year to see if it was a good change or if it's something that we repeal for next year. But this is it gets us away from having a whole bunch of 7-team divisions. Okay, I think we explained that. Next slide. Yeah, so team placement, once again, we always try to create even number of teams. In the past, when we had many teams to choose from, so this year we had 109. In the past, we would be, in the 300s. We were a little bit more, we had more ability to put teams in 6-team divisions and have them play each other. But there's always a problem because it's very difficult to move a team from one division to another. So if you're in a 6-team division and you're losing 10-0, 12-0, there's not much we can do about it mid-season. It's very hard to make that change because there's all this downstream effects of pulling a team in, and then all the schedules change. And so it's very sparingly that we could ever do that. So that's why we try to that's why we spread the divisions out a little bit more. There might be a team that's very competitive, but at least you might not see them over and over and over again like you do in a 6-team division. the team placement this year really is based on last year's results. So if we created groups and we placed you in a group, it's based on the results that we had last year, because the year before that was COVID. We didn't have any information. Basically, the information falls into a void after that. That made the competition committee have a challenging year this year making our placements. And once again, we don't have any roster information, so we don't know if you guys have Pele's on your team, or if you have Bob Driscolls that can't even kick the ball on your team. We just aren't sure, so we don't even try to apply that. We're just purely looking at schedules from standings from last year, from Rec Cup, if you played in Rec Cup, and from regular season. All right, next. Yeah, okay, so let's clear out the questions. Yes, U15 plays against U16. We've actually, throughout our history, we've had to combine multiple age groups. As long as we stay within 1 or 2 years, we're typically okay. With U15 and U16 boys and girls, what we've done is we've sorted them by competition. So if we had a 10-0 team at U15, we placed them with U16. We had a lot of U16 teams, for example, that were 0-8 and 2 or 1-9. So they'll be playing against the U15 teams that had similar records. Yeah, okay. Then I'm answering Justin's questions. I'm sorry, I meant 2 teams could go 10-0. So yeah, even if you're in a large division, it's 10 games. Are player yellow cards tracked across games? Alan, you want to answer that question?
Yeah. Keith, that goes to the points accumulation. So I think it's been a while since a yellow card's worth 1 point, a red card's worth 3 points. So if you, so that would just be the team, or perhaps even an individual points accumulation. So if a player gets too many cards, and I'd have to go back and look at what it is, too many points, an individual player could actually have to sit out a game if they consistently get cards in their yellow cards, but the points add up. So yeah, the points are tracked, but ultimately it's the coach's kind of responsibility to kind of keep track of that for their team. And if they see they're trending in a bad way, to try to and no, we're not going to be telling you if your players are getting close. So that's why you need to keep track of it. So it's just it's rarely an issue, and it's pretty much exclusively the older boys teams that have this problem. Probably U16, U17 and above are the prime offenders in this category.
I'm going to answer Rick's question. When considering last season's records, do you also consider the team played in the first division or second division? Last year, we didn't have divisions. Last year, because of COVID, we basically had no information on teams. So it was pretty much random draws as we formed the divisions last year. So no competitive information was formed last year. So this is only for this year. And so we looked purely at the records from last year. So for the Anthony's team, there's only 7 teams between, are your boys or girls? If you're boys, there's only 7 teams between U18 and U19. We didn't have a choice. We had to combine U18 and 19. If it's girls, we only had 7 teams from U17 through U19. And once again, we didn't have a choice. Like I said, we're going to handle that through coach education. And if we have to send monitors out to the game, we will send monitors out to the game. So we do reserve the right to do that. Send people from either the competition committee or an officer of the club or an officer of D2 to go out and watch games. If you see us there, don't don't take it personally. It might not be your team we're monitoring. It might be just a situation. But yeah, if we have to, we'll be there and we'll validate that. We'll talk to the coaches if we need to.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, can I go back and answer the points question a little more? I went back and looked at the looked at the procedures there, but basically, for an individual player, if an individual player gets 3 yellow cards during the season, then they will be required to sit out 1 game. So that's kind of the threshold for an individual player for getting yellow cards. 3 yellow cards during the fall season, they'll have to sit out a game. And then, but then there's points in both. If you're playing Rec Cup and fall season, the points don't necessarily, the points don't commingle, except if somebody has a suspension they have to serve. And let's say it's from the Rec Cup games. If there's fall games still left, then and they had no more Rec Cup games, then they would have to serve it in the fall league game. So let's see.
I'm going to go back and talk about the girls, the U17 through U19. Just for your information, we talked to Seattle to see if we could get more of their teams involved and basically have a wider division, have better competition, keep it within the same age groups. We came pretty close to striking a deal, but we couldn't get it done in time because they had just implemented a new system and they weren't sure how it was going to work. The other thing is District 1 basically wanted our roster information, and coordinating that wasn't feasible. But when we first started those communications, we had 3 high school girls age teams, U17 through U19. Fortunately, we got 4 more so we could host it inside of D2, but there was a point where we were trying to consider, if we can't do it with Seattle or North County, do we have to cancel this year? And so we're scheduling the games as we are. We're going to use coach education to make sure that we don't have, we don't run into situations and issues. And as Leslie put in the chat, if we can, if it gets to a point where we mix teams just to play a game, that's what we're going to do. I think that runs out the questions, and we've kept everyone 21 minutes over that longer. We have some information about referees and the signing up for referees and whether or not the coaches would like to, take on that additional responsibility or share it with their teams. We're going to take this slide deck and put it up on the site, and then you can go ahead and read those last 3 slides on your own. There's just some information about how to become a referee, and like Alan mentioned, we're down on referees, so the more referees we can get, the merrier. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and thank everyone for coming. Thank you for coaching. We couldn't do it without you. I know your players really appreciate coming out there. You're coming out and helping them out and coaching and mentoring them, and we appreciate it too. Thank you. Good night.